In this episode of the How to Get on Reality TV podcast, it's all about Skype calls. Welcome to the How to Get on Reality TV podcast with Dan Giesling, where I answer your reality TV casting questions once a week. Hey everyone, what's going on? My name's Dan Giesling, and as always, I'm excited to be here every Monday answering your reality TV casting questions. This week's an interesting one, something that maybe I think I touch on a little bit in the guide or one of the books or the video course, but it's something we haven't directly addressed here in the podcast, which I think is going to be helpful, especially to some people right now in particular with everything that's going on in casting. Before we do that, I just want to give you a heads up that the Instagram account is starting to ramp up a little bit here at instagram.com/howtogetoonrealitytv. You guys can go check that out for sure. But we're going to go ahead and jump into this week's question from Michelle, which is all about Skype auditions and Skype calls.
Hi, Dan. I love your podcast. I listen to it every day on the way to work, and sadly, I'm running out of episodes, so please continue to make them. People keep sending them questions. I love listening to this. So let's get started with my question. My question has to do with Skype interviews. Now, these days, casting producers have the option to interview applicants via Skype. And I was just wondering, is it better to be invited to a Skype call than it is to be invited to an open casting call or for an in-person semifinal interview? And then if you are invited, what should you expect lengthwise and just how long it'll take? What type of questions would be asked? Would it be identical to a normal interview that casting would do? And what should your setup look like? Should you wear headphones, use the microphone in your headphones? Should the background be a plain white wall? Is it acceptable to use your phone? Those are just some of the questions I had, and I don't think you've touched on Skype interviews, so I hope you can answer my question. Thank you, and go green!
All right, Michelle, thanks so much for the love. I'll tell you what, you did some great promotion for the show. I appreciate that. And right away, I'm going to say, if you brought any of that energy to either your open call or your audition video, that's good. You can tell by someone's, just by voice, just by hearing through your voicemail that you left, you have something to you. You understand how to at least inflect your voice, whether you know you're doing it or not. You brought some great energy. And that's not to say that other people that have submitted questions don't have great energy, but that's something that really stands out about you. And the fact that you showed some love for the show, that never hurts. A little flattery never hurts. So let's go ahead and get into your question. You said, hey, what's going on with the Skype interview? What is it all about? And is it better to go to one of those or go to one in person? So let me go ahead and give you kind of the analysis or evolution of the Skype interview. So back in the day, casting used to travel a lot more. Casting companies, they'd go to multiple cities. They would go there, at different times. And I think there was a lot more money back then. As just an inference, you would see people, and I'm sure it's technology too, but you would see a lot more face-to-face stuff. Now it's a more cost-effective way to hop on a Skype call, or if, for example, if you were to get a Skype semifinal interview, chances are, because they're not anywhere near your area, say you live in Skokie, Illinois, and I don't know where Skokie, Illinois is, but, chances are they're not going to be there face-to-face. You're probably going to get a semifinal Skype interview versus like, hey, there's an open casting call in Dallas. Okay, so everyone goes to an open casting call. Usually they sandwich the semifinals a day or two after that. So that they can go through everyone at the open casting call and then select the people they like to come the next day for a semifinal interview. And the people that live in that surrounding area that may have already applied for an audition video or sent an audition video that were good enough to get semifinal interviews will get invited there. So they may be within a 2 to 4 to however far out radius that they actually have to drive in to that open casting call location or someone nearby for a face-to-face interview. So is it better to be in person or not? It's really a factor outside of your control. It more has to do with geography and where you're located. But either way, they're both good. And I've talked to a few people that sometimes people have like a quick check-in, either phone call or I don't know that it's been check-in Skype, but there'll be some sort of check-in call before you kind of get that Skype or that next step, depending on what network and who the casting company is. But a lot of companies are utilizing Skype because it's way more cost effective. And they don't have to spend as much money, setting up travel and blah, blah, blah. So what should you expect? What should you expect if you're at a Skype semifinal interview? Very similar to what you would do in person. A lot of the things that you're going to be asked are going to be directly from your audition video or your open casting call, interesting things you've said, a lot of things about your character. So one of the best things you can do for your Skype casting call is to be prepared. Not be prepared in a way that you recite every story word for word, but hey, they're probably going to ask you about, your job or whatever you highlighted in your audition video. So be ready to expand and tell stories about that experience so that you can engage them in a conversation. Another interesting question you said, and these are things that I guess, I don't want to say take for granted, but some interesting questions like, hey, when I'm doing this Skype call, should I do it from my phone? Should I do it from a webcam? What should be in the background? So if you're asking for my opinion, my best opinion is that go into it where you're not running around, where you're not frantic, where you're not having to rely on your phone, meaning that, hey, give yourself some time to get settled in and prepared, so it's not helter skelter. Hey, I'm in between classes and let me sit down in the coffee shop and Skype interview. Hey, just go to your dorm or go to your house, pop open your laptop. Get yourself ready. One of the great things you could do in a Skype semifinal interview versus in a in-person, semifinal interview is right now, you could set up, and this is all depends on how slick you are. Right now I have I don't tell if you guys are watching this video, if you can tell if I'm looking at the camera or looking directly above it, you can look up real quick and get reminders of things that you want to, talk about. So maybe you have some bullet pointed things you want to hit there, not word for word, but hey, make sure to hit X, Y, and Z. That's you can use that as a resource in a Skype interview. It's not going to look weird if you look to the side real quick, just if you get off track. So there's a lot of different things about the strategy of a Skype call that you can use to help put yourself in a position where you're not having to, I don't want to say it's a pressure environment, but essentially you got one shot at it. So you want to make sure you're in a situation where it's a controlled environment, and everything. My thoughts on my philosophy on going through casting is that any variable that you can control, you need to control, whether it's, your time, before it. You don't want to get to the Skype call 30 seconds before. Your environment, are people going to be running in and out of your room or wherever your webcam is? Your story. You want to have everything that's in your control nailed down to a T, so you're not worrying about that. So really the only thing you focus on in a casting philosophy is stuff that's outside of your control, or maybe not outside of your control, but inside of your control, how you present yourself. Are you ready to go? And because there's so many things that affect whether or not you're going to get cast on a show or not. Do you fit the right puzzle? Is it, the right mix of a cast? Do you have do you click with your particular casting associate? There's so many things that are outside of your control. For you to go in with all these open variables, just reduces your chance of success. So my best advice is don't use your phone. Get yourself set up, get to the Skype call 20 minutes early so you're not panicked, and get that set up. The other thing you said, hey, what should be in the background? It would be cool if it should just be in your normal environment. And I use the term normal environment, but the other thing too, in a Skype semifinal type interview, you can do stuff to highlight or help your chances. For example, so say you're doing it from your office or your bedroom, and maybe behind you is just a blank wall. Well, hey, maybe you just conveniently tack up a plaque of yours, or a ribbon that looks like it wasn't just tacked there for the interview, but you have it hung up there for a reason. Or maybe it's a picture of you doing something crazy, so that it's just something you can add and use that you wouldn't be able to use in the semifinal interview. So that way, because they're going to record your semifinal interview, they're going to capture the footage. That's just something else that can be oh yeah, she was the girl that, had the Michigan State poster in the background or whatever, is a Midwestern girl and they remember that from whatever, but just there's some things that you can leverage and juice out of a Skype semifinal interview without overdoing it and without overthinking it, that you can just help put yourself in a position to be a little more successful. It's almost like, it's funny, especially now for particular shows when casting is wide open right now. I'll get so many Snapchats from people. It happened with like one. Now they're starting to roll in. It's like, hey, like I spent 2 hours and I spoke to a camera and no one else was there, or I spent 3 hours in line and my audition was 30 seconds long, or whatever. It's like, I tell people do audition videos because you can control it. And it's almost like the Skype semifinal interview is like the audition video of semifinals, if that makes sense. Because you can, a lot of it's you're talking to a camera. You don't even have the pressure of sitting face to face with someone. If you're nervous and you have like nervous tics and like, there's a lot you can like mask, and there's so much you can benefit from in a Skype semifinal interview. And I think this is kind of the first time we've really breached this topic. Take advantage of the fact that you can do it from your own convenience and use everything around you and gain any advantage that you can to reduce your level of like anxiety or nervousness. Because I'm going to guess that's, for most people, it's going to be dramatically decreased if like you're shooting your Skype semifinal interview from home as opposed to face to face. It is what it is. However, at some point, the rubber meets the road, and if you do well in your semifinal interviews, you're going to have to go face to face at some point. So I guess it's kind of a double-edged sword, but it's just at any time you can gain an angle, take advantage of it. So Michelle, I hope this helped answer your question. I appreciate, your energy and your different question, and you're right. As always, you guys drive the show. When you guys ask great questions, it makes everything go. And so I appreciate the shout out, our similar university love. But as a small thank you, Michelle, we're going to send you a free digital copy of my story, How a Normal Guy Got Cast on Reality TV, which, by the way, it's somewhere on YouTube. The first ever audition video I shot was on the campus of my alma mater, and you'd probably recognize some of the landmarks in it. Being from the same university. But outside of that, big thank you for submitting your question. If you want your question answered on the show, just like Michelle, you can go to howtogetonrealitytv.net/ask. There's a voicemail app. It's really easy to use. You can use it from your phone or from your computer. It's so easy, and maybe, just maybe, we'll answer your question on the show just like Michelle's. Thank you guys so much. All right, so that wraps up another episode of the How to Get on Reality TV podcast. This was a good one. I ended last week's with a little bit of a rant. This one, it's smooth sailing. I was really happy with the way this episode turned out. A great question. I think it's very valid for what a lot of people are going through right now. And as always, hope you guys enjoy the show. You guys want to check out the Instagram, go to instagram.com/howtogetonrealitytv. And I will see you guys next Monday to answer your next reality TV casting question. Have a great one. And for people that are in the middle of the casting grind right now, just hang tight. No matter if you're on a show for ABC, NBC, CBS, whatever, it's a very, I don't want to say dramatic, but it's a very uncertain time. And when you're waiting for that call, just chill out. But anyway, guys, have a good one, and I'll see you guys next Monday.